Welcome back to Scene in 15. Please like and subscribe so I won't become a 40-year-old virgin. Have you seen The Valet? It's a 2022 romantic comedy about a gorgeous movie star who must fake a relationship with an honest and hardworking valet to cover for her relationship with a married billionaire. The film begins with Antonio cruising down the streets of LA in a blue McLaren supercar. We soon find out that he's actually a valet and not the owner of the car. He leaves work on his bicycle, passing some posters of a movie star, Olivia Allen. As he cycles further, he passes Vincent Royce, billionaire real estate developer, with his wife Catherine, giving a public speech about some new developments in the community. He eventually arrives at his son, Marco's, high school. He smiles as he sees his son talking to a girl, and his son tells him not to say anything. Marco jumps on the back of his bike and tells his dad to go. As they arrive home to a modest 3-story apartment complex, Mr. Kim, his Korean landlord, comes out of his apartment. Antonio asks, "Is everything okay?" And Mr. Kim replies, "Toilet flush good," and rushes off while looking back suspiciously. Antonio and Marco enter the apartment, and they are greeted by Antonio's elderly mother, Cecilia. Antonio questions his mom, asking her what she has been putting in the toilet, as the landlord has been over 3 times this week. She replies while looking down, "It's an old building," and he suggests that they get a real handyman, and says that he will go to talk to Mr. Kim. She stops him and admits that Mr. Kim and she are lovers. Antonio is surprised and doesn't want to hear the details, but Cecilia explains that's why she has the smile. Antonio is confused about how they communicate, as they don't speak English or each other's language. She replies that they speak a deeper language. Antonio doesn't want to hear anymore. Next, we see Olivia Allen dressed as a waitress, forgetting her lines on set. She then leaves her trailer in a black hat and a black hoodie, gets into a Range Rover and drives to a car park. She parks her car and gets into a Mercedes, where a driver then discreetly takes her to the Royce Hotel with paparazzi waiting outside. She heads up to the penthouse suite, where Vincent Royce is waiting for her. She takes her hat off, and they kiss. Back at Antonio's apartment, we find out that he is recently separated from his wife. His sister Clara encourages him to go for the new music teacher at the school where she works. His brother-in-law Benny says the teacher is okay, probably about what Antonio could get. The conversation then goes to how Cecilia is dating Mr. Kim, until there is a knock on the door. It's Antonio's wife, Isabel, who has come to pick up their son, Marco. While they wait for Marco to pick up his things, Antonio notices that Isabel is upset. After a little bit of prying, Isabel admits that her loan got denied after missing some payments, and she can't pay for her tuition, which is $12,870. Antonio wants to help, but then Isabel tells him that she is dating a local realtor, Ronnie. Marco comes out of the apartment and interrupts them, saying that Grandma Cecilia is out of medicine and that it would be very serious if she has another heart attack. Isabel and Marco walk off, leaving a concerned Antonio. Back at the Royce Hotel, we see Olivia and Vincent in bed. Vincent's phone goes off twice. She feels uncomfortable sleeping around with a married man, mentioning that she is a role model for girls, and starts to get dressed. Vincent gets her to say she loves him, and says he loves her too. He promises that he will leave his wife, but that it's bad timing because his wife is depressed over the death of her mother. Vincent brings Olivia a present, but she is unconvinced. She says goodbye to him and leaves. Vincent quickly gets dressed and rushes out to stop her. Meanwhile, Antonio is leaving a pharmacy on his bike after picking up his mother's heart medicine. While Vincent chases Olivia, they accuse each other of being reckless for leaving out the front of the hotel. Just as the paparazzi was about to give up and leave, he hears the commotion. Antonio, who is riding his bike down the same street, sees an ad on the bench of Ronnie, the realtor, and while distracted, crashes his bike into the back of Olivia's Uber taxi. Vincent is worried about people seeing all this and pays the driver for damages. While Olivia checks on Antonio, the paparazzi across the road seizes the moment and snaps some pictures of the situation. The next day, Antonio takes his damaged bicycle to a local shop for repairs. The shopkeeper, Natalie, expresses how they might have to close up shop after 15 years due to the new developments by Royce. Meanwhile, Olivia sees the pictures taken by the paparazzi from last night and screams, "No!" She continues to freak out, worried about how it will ruin her film, which is about to release. The film quickly cuts to Vincent's mansion, where his wife, Catherine, asks him to explain the picture. Vincent exclaims he's never met that woman in his life, and that there were lots of celebrities there. He takes the lie even further, saying that Olivia was with Antonio. who is also in the picture. Catherine is not convinced. Vincent then has a meeting with his lawyer, Daniel, who comes up with an idea of Olivia and Antonio pretending to be a couple publicly. Daniel then drives to Antonio's place of work and proposes the idea to him. Daniel tells Antonio that he works for a billionaire and to name his price for doing this. Antonio asks for $12,870. At the same time, Catherine has hired a private investigator, Stagman, to find out more about Antonio, and is even less convinced that Olivia would date someone who parks cars. The next day, Olivia starts to plan. Daniel calls her while she is driving, informing her that the car behind her is Stagman, who works for Mrs. Royce, but the car behind that car is Kapoor, who works for them. We then see Antonio at work with his colleagues standing outside. Then he mentions the music teacher again, saying she's a bit pear-shaped but that maybe he should go for her. Another colleague tries to back him up, saying he's not Brad Pitt. He's skinny, but no ass. Then in the end can't think of any compliment. At that moment, Olivia arrives, exits the vehicle, and with a seductive smile, walks straight towards Antonio. She gives him a deep kiss and wraps her arms around him. To the shock of his colleagues and everyone around, we see a waiter spill water, and an old lady mouth WTF. Stagman and Kapoor eagerly snap away with their cameras. Antonio and Olivia leave in her car, with everyone still speechless. In the car, Olivia explains that the plan is to go have lunch in the public place where her and assistant has already notified the paparazzi. Antonio exclaims that he is old enough to be her father, and that nobody will believe it. Olivia yells they won't if he keeps sweating like a dolphin and to get his shit together. They arrive, surrounded by paparazzi, and everyone takes pictures of them. Olivia tells Antonio to say something so she can laugh really hard. Antonio says he doesn't understand, and Olivia throws her head back and laughs. She explains that the paparazzi always use the laughing shot. She then lets Antonio know that he will be her date at her premiere on Saturday. She also suggests that he gets rid of the mustache. We then see the reaction of different people. Antonio's colleagues are excited and envious. Isabel is confused, Vincent's wife Catherine apologizes to him, and Olivia's pool guy thinks he has a chance. On the evening of the premiere, a limo picks up a clean-shaven Antonio in a tuxedo. They go and pick up Olivia, whose team has spent 12 hours assembling her, so she has to lie down flat in the limo. They arrive at the red carpet. Olivia exits out the car gracefully with a bewildered Antonio. She tells him to smile, and he puts on a very unnatural stiff grin. All the while, his family watch him on TV. Antonio ends up talking to a popular Latin TV show host and is confused by his question of whose is the tuxedo, asking for the designer. Antonio answers, it's his, it's a gift. Olivia notices and quickly drags him away. During the film, Antonio grabs a heap of free snacks while Olivia is slumped down in her seat. After the film, in the lounge at the after party, Olivia spots Vincent and Catherine at the bar across the room. She comments that Catherine doesn't look depressed at all. Then Catherine and Vincent approach and greet them. Catherine asks them about how they met, and Olivia makes up a story about how Antonio picked her up while working as a valet when she had a flat tire. Olivia's assistant quickly saves them by taking them away. Outside, Kapoor tricks Stagman with a falafel and bugs his car with a listening device. Back inside in the woman's bathroom, Vincent goes to see Olivia and tries to reassure her once again that it will just be the two of them. Olivia is having none of it and leaves. Back in the lounge, Catherine confronts Antonio and offers $100,000. Antonio, being a man of his word, stays loyal, calls Catherine superficial, and says she underestimates the passion of a Latin man. Antonio then finds a very drunk Olivia in the stairway. He offers to call the limo, but she refuses as she is worried about the drunk photos taken by the paparazzi, so they head through the kitchen for the back exit. While supporting a drunk Olivia through the kitchen, Antonio is praised as the hero by the other Latin men. One even cries a single tear. Outside the back, Antonio's friends pick them up, and they go for a quick drive-thru meal and drops them off at Antonio's house. As Antonio helps Olivia to his room, Cecilia reminds him of the thin walls. He says they're just going to sleep. In the bedroom, Olivia strips down to her underwear and falls asleep immediately. Antonio heads back out to the living room to watch TV with his mother. She brings up Mr. Kim and makes him feel very uncomfortable, but then offers some words of encouragement. In the morning, Olivia wakes up to find Antonio had slept in his armchair. He assures her that he has slept with his clothes on. She then cleans up, and they head groggily out of the bedroom. They are then surprised by 19 people, friends, family, and some people that Antonio has never met in his life. They are all extremely excited to meet her and bombard her with their dishes from their local cuisines. Olivia seems to really feel the warmth of such a large family, which she lacks. There is then a knock on the door. Marco forgot his math book, and Isabel brought him back to collect it. Isabel sees Olivia, apologizes for disturbing them, and swiftly leaves. Antonio is upset and goes to his room. Olivia goes to check on him, and he tells her that he feels he ruined everything, now that Isabel saw him with her. Olivia doesn't think so. Then Isabel messages Antonio using a field trip form for his son as an excuse to talk with him. She is jealous. Back inside the apartment, Marco invites Olivia to his high school Shakespeare play of Midsummer Night's Dream. The rest of the family packs some food for Olivia to take away. They take a group picture, and then Olivia's assistant arrives to pick her up. Nearby, Stegman confirms to Catherine that Olivia is dating Antonio and tells her he will send an invoice for the job. Next, Kapoor calls Daniel to inform Vincent that Olivia spent the night at Antonio's. Vincent, who has just been saying Olivia is not worth the risk of his empire, suddenly goes back on his word and tells Kapoor to hire another detective to follow Olivia around. Kapoor goes to Stegman and hires him for the job. During a party at his mansion, Vincent receives a call from Counselor Garcia, which is actually Olivia. He asks her where she has been last night, but before she can talk to him about it, he has to hang up. Olivia opens a bottle of rosé, stares at the leftovers, and gazes out into the night from her balcony. She then decides to go to Marco's high school play. Afterwards, everyone has dinner together in celebration of the play. Claire and Benny ask Olivia what she sees in Antonio. She replies that he is decent and kind, which is surprisingly difficult to find. Benny agrees, saying they are a dying breed. Isabel, who's sitting with Ronnie, the realtor, watches enviously in the background. After dinner, everybody dances together. Antonio bumps into Natalie, the bike shop owner at the bar. She is drowning her sorrows away with tequila, as she thinks she will lose her shop. Benny sees their interaction and bows in admiration at Antonio's power with women. Later, Isabel waits for Antonio to come out of the bathroom and ambushes him with a kiss up against the wall. She asks him if they still have a chance, and he eagerly says yes. She asks if he would really leave a famous actress for her. He reveals that it was all pretend, and that they are not really dating, and that Catherine, Vincent's wife, even offered him $100,000. She's a little surprised and asks him if he took the money, and he replies no, because he had already given Vincent his word. Isabel hears Ronnie calling for her and has to rush away. Antonio heads back to their table, where Benny tells him that he is expanding his valet business and wants to promote him. Then, Olivia asks Antonio if he can walk her to her car, and Antonio agrees. As they are walking, they notice Stegman and Kapoor. Antonio asks her if she wants to mess with them, and she agrees excitedly. They get on Antonio's bike, lead the two detectives down a narrow alleyway to get away. They both have a nice walk by the waterfront, where Antonio tells Olivia that Isabel wants him back. She is delighted by the news and says, "I told you so." They continue walking through Antonio's neighborhood. Olivia expresses how she likes the area, and Antonio tells her that it might all be gone soon because of the new real estate developments. Afterwards, Olivia confesses that she doesn't want to be alone tonight and asks if she can stay at his apartment. Antonio agrees, but says she sleeps on the chair tonight. When they arrive back at the apartment, Antonio catches Cecilia smoking. She denies it, changes the subject, and says there are two men spying on her from the apartment across the road. Olivia decides that she wants to mess with them even more. We then see Antonio and Olivia pretending to have sex while the detectives watch attentively. She gets on top and puts on a wild performance, while Antonio is lying on the bed uncomfortably stiff. Antonio eventually slides away and crawls out of the room. Afterwards, they have a chat on the bed, and Olivia reveals that she tries to convince herself that she has a perfect life, where in fact, all her friends are people she pays. She never sees her family, and she feels lonely. She also thinks that Vincent will never leave his wife. Antonio comforts her and then starts to head to his chair to sleep. She asks him to stay. The next morning, Antonio goes to meet Isabel at a coffee shop. Isabel tells him that she has thought about it a lot, and that this is never going to be what she needs. She says she can't stop thinking about the money he turned down, and thinks Antonio walks through life like he doesn't deserve much. She decides that it's time they got a divorce. Back in Vincent's office, Daniel receives a message from Kapoor showing Olivia and Antonio having sex last night. Antonio returns home and storms to his room while Olivia and Cecilia watch one of her films, dubbed in Spanish, on TV. Olivia goes to check on Antonio and tries to console him, but he is not in the mood and ends up taking his frustration out on her. She says that they are friends, but he says that she's using him, and when she is done, she will go back to being a movie star and he will continue being invisible. She is upset and leaves. Immediately after that, Vincent exits the car and punches Antonio in the face, shouting he didn't hire him to sleep with his girlfriend and he's not going to pay him a penny. As if his day wasn't bad enough already, Antonio turns to see his bike has been stolen. We see a depressed Antonio commute to work. Once there, he confesses to his colleagues that it was all fake, that he was never dating Olivia. Then Daniel pulls up to the booth and asks Antonio if he has a minute. He gives him a check for $25,000. Antonio refuses the offer, as it is much more than the agreed amount. After a little convincing, and remembering what Isabel said to him in the morning, he accepts the money. Next, we see Stegman admiring Cecilia and Mr. Kim's relationship, as they just had sex, and now Mr. Kim is making her eggs. Kapoor asks him if he wants to be his roommate, and they hug romantically. Then, in the middle of the hug, Stegman noticed Cecilia collapse, and Mr. Kim frantically calls for help. Later, Antonio rushes to the hospital, but he can see by everyone is crying that it's already too late. Antonio and his friends Mr. Kim and Benny carry Cecilia's coffin down the aisle. Antonio gives a moving but also heartwarming eulogy describing Cecilia's struggles bringing up all her children, how her laughter shook the ground, and how she lived an extraordinary life full of love. He thanks Mr. Kim for bringing so much happiness to her. After some time, Antonio is back at work. When Vincent parks his car and hands him the keys without recognizing him, Benny complains how Olivia deserves much better, and they all encourage him to make up with her. After some encouragement from his friends, Benny gives Antonio his car keys, and he rushes off to a nearby film studio. He swiftly parks the car, impressing the valets that work there. He then walks to the set where Olivia has just finished the scene. Olivia comes over and offers her condolences as she has heard about his mom's passing from her assistant. They take a walk, and Antonio says he just can't stand watching her wait her turn with that cabron. Olivia tells him that he is going to break up with Vincent. He then apologizes for the things he said. She admits that the words hurt because they were true and apologizes too. We then see Vincent and Catherine by the pool at their mansion. While Vincent goes to change into his swimsuit, he gets a call from Olivia, and Catherine notices that he's been receiving way too many calls from Counselor Garcia. Next, we see a hooded figure in a cap exit a Range Rover in a car park and get into a Mercedes, which then drives over to a Royce Hotel. The person arrives at the penthouse suite and is welcomed by Vincent. The person takes off their hood and Vincent is shocked to see Antonio, who serves him divorce papers. Antonio then hands him a phone with Catherine on the other end, who tells him that she is taking the company and informing the authorities about his shady offshore accounts. Vincent pleads and says that Olivia means nothing to him. Olivia, who is sitting right next to Catherine listening in, tells Vincent he is a loudspeaker. Vincent quickly tries to switch gears and save his relationship with Olivia, but obviously, it doesn't work. Olivia and Catherine high-five. Antonio takes the phone and leaves. Back in the car park, Olivia apologizes to Catherine, and Catherine thanks Antonio, asking him if there's anything she could do for him. Antonio tells her that there is something. Afterwards, there is a community council meeting, where Natalie is protesting about how gentrification is erasing the heart and soul of their neighborhood. Suddenly, the council member receives a message notifying them that the developers are calling off the project. Everyone in the room jumps up from their chairs in celebration. We are then shown scenes of Antonio in his apartment with Mr. Kim, Benny, and other family members enjoying their time together. In contrast, Vincent is taken away by FBI agents, and Stegman and Kapoor make breakfast together. After some time, Antonio takes his bike wheel to Natalie. She surprises him with his lost bike, saying she brought it off of a homeless person for $8. He leaves the shop with an anxious expression, but then builds up the courage to turn around and go ask her out. We are then shown Antonio and Olivia having lunch where he's telling her about his date with Natalie. They fight over a pickle as the camera zooms out.
Oh, see?
Now you've seen it. Remember, kids, just because you work at a dead-end job doesn't mean you can't have the beautiful lady.